What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Have you ever wanted to know the future? Well, a staple of EM machines in arcades was the fortune teller. They came in all shapes and sizes, different varieties. The one thing they had in common is that they'd take your money and they'd give you a card, which would tell you your fortune. There's one exception, which we'll get to towards the end, but aside from that, that's pretty much how they went. There were tabletop fortune tellers, as made famous, of course, in the Twilight Zone episode with the rogue tabletop fortune teller, where you twist a dial and it pops a card out. And then there were the full-size fortune tellers and the mid-size fortune tellers. So the full-size fortune teller would be something like the Gypsy fortune teller made by Mills in 1908. Now this one actually spoke your fortune by use of wax cylinder. And there were a few that used this type of design, but by far the most common was for there to be a stack of cards in a dispenser that the machine would flip into a little tray at the bottom. Now the interesting thing about fortune tellers as machines is that typically they weren't the simple love tester style where you grab a handle or something of that nature and pull or just squeeze and light bulbs light up. They actually moved and did things. You got a little bit of entertainment for your money. And I'm going to go ahead and pre-apologize if anybody's offended. A lot of fortune tellers are not the most culturally sensitive things that have ever been made. But, they are very interesting pieces of arcade history. So, as far as what they did to entertain, aside from lights, there would be typically a booth with a mannequin inside that would light up. The mannequin would move, and the way it moved was there was a single large motor which activated, which would move several different cams with rods attached, and those rods would pull various parts. And some of the parts that they pulled would have additional wires attached. So with them, it could do things like move the head back and forth, or it could move an arm left and right, or it could make it appear as though the figure inside was breathing. Those kinds of things, which would be very creepy to witness on their own, without any power applied to the machine. So, aside from those type, there was also my favorite kind, which were the mystery writing style of fortune teller. And what these were small upright arcade displays, and inside there would be a pen suspended in such a way that it appeared when a motor turned that it was writing on a card, and it would write furiously and move back and forth, and then at the end a card would drop out and it would appear to be handwritten, as if the pen had written your fortune. Now, to spoil the surprise for you, basically what it was doing was dropping from a stack of cards that appeared to be handwritten. And the pen was suspended over top of this irregularly shaped cam, and as the motor spun, it would move the pen back and forth and up and down. A pretty neat trick, and I really think those are cool looking from the displays and signage that they would have to attract you. Mystic rays and so forth, charging up the pen. So, working on one of these machines doesn't look like it would be too terribly difficult. You've essentially got one motor. As long as that turns and turns freely, then you're pretty much good to go, unless you've got any broken mechanical pieces. And the dispenser itself might need some adjustment or cleaning, but aside from that, there's really nothing that can really go wrong. So the magic writing style, or the typical card dispensing style, were in the medium-sized cabs. Those were floor models, so they sit on the floor and have a mannequin inside where they have the magic pen. The magic pen was a bit smaller than most of the mannequin style. And then there were the tabletop fortune tellers, like the one I described from that Twilight Zone episode. Those were the smallest, really, fortune tellers. But in between that and the magic pen style, there was Zoltan. Now, you may be thinking of the mannequin fortune teller from the movie Big, but that's Zoltar. Now, it used a similar looking mannequin, but not the same. Now, Zoltan would not move itself. It would only have a crystal ball that lit up. And what's interesting about Zoltan is it was made in the 60s, and you used a telephone receiver in order to receive your fortune. So you would push your astrological symbol, the crystal ball would light up, and Zoltan would talk. And he would tell you, what kind of fortune you might expect. Essentially, this one was Zoltan's head, a crystal ball, and his hands crammed into a very small glass box, which was suspended on a wooden stand. Now, the box itself and the wooden stand were very intricately carved. It's a very beautiful and attractive cabinet. A lot of the mannequin fortune tellers are very interesting from a cabinet perspective. Some of them not so much. So they may have these very detailed mannequins inside, but on the outside they're just a flat color or a single hand-painted attract sign. Not really the most beautiful of machines, but they are quite cool. The ones that speak, I would imagine, would be the hardest to maintain in their original form. Like our friend Zoltan uses a cartridge-based cassette system in order to speak the fortunes. And over time, that's going to wear down and out, especially if it's been stored in a non-climate controlled environment for many, many years. And, now these things are over 50 years old. So the chance that the original equipment will have survived is fairly slim. So there is a site online that preserves some of these fortune tellers' fortunes and allows you to download, and then you could put it on a SD card attached to a Raspberry Pi or something of that nature in order to play back your intended sounds. Wiring this up would probably be fairly trivial. When the machine speaks, it's going to apply voltage at a particular rate. Not voltage, it'll apply current at a particular rate to one or more sets of wires. So you can get your read off of that, and then use the computer to do the rest. You would step this down or up or something of that nature in order to get it to the appropriate input. But regardless, these machines are not unfixable. They're fairly simple inside. So should you run across one and you feel the need to add that to your collection, I would say that they would be a pretty easy fix. Cosmetically, you're going to have more problems. If the mannequin is no longer available, or the clothing, which it should have, is not available, then you're going to have to improvise. But it's not impossible, certainly, to do that kind of restoration. It's would just be time-consuming to sew your own clothes for the mannequin inside a fortune teller machine. And other items like the sculpted hands and heads might have to be replaced with actual mannequin parts. But that would be better than having a missing or rotted away hand or face. That would be pretty rough. So fortune tellers are pretty neat, and they came in all different shapes and sizes. I certainly wouldn't mind adding one to my collection, especially a Zoltan. I think that particular cabinet is so beautiful. It would be a great addition to any collection. There are modern repros of the Zoltar from the movie Big. Those cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Depending on where you might find one of these, you could get them for less, especially if they're not working for whatever reason. The biggest thing to check is whatever applies power to the motor and the motor itself. If all that's working, then you should be in good shape. That's not the case, though, now that I think about it, if you've got one of those ones that uses the wax cylinder player. Now, those have a finite life anyway. So I mentioned the cartridge-based tape systems wearing out. Well, wax cylinders will wear out fairly quickly because they're just made of wax. And they have a needle going across them like on a record or phonograph. So what you should do to preserve those, if you can't find the files online, is to record what you've got, and you may have to spend quite a bit of time tweaking what you're able to record in your audio software before you're able to get a clean reading on it. And you probably want to leave some scratchiness in there because that would be there straight from the factory. You know, wax cylinders not built to last. So that's my thoughts on fortune tellers. And if you have one, I'd love to see it. You know, shoot me a little video. Send me some details. But thank you again for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, and you can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, or on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.